glad to meet you people tonight. My name's really not important. I could bore you by telling you that I am Elias, a shepherd from the tribe of Issachar, but I understand that in this day, in this place, it really has precious little meaning for you. It's not like my clan or my tribe's all that important anyway. You may not even remember that there was an Issachar. Besides, I'm not really here to tell you about me tonight. I want to tell you about an event that I understand most of you already know a fair amount about. This probably isn't a story that will be new to you. But I want to tell you about it. I want to tell you what it was like through my eyes. If you look in the scroll, well, you don't really call them scrolls now. I understand you call them books. A little easier to flip through. If you look in the book of Exodus, this event is recorded in chapter 32. I'm not going to read it for you. You've probably already read it. I want to tell you about what it was like as I lived it. I want to tell you what happened. And to tell the truth, I'm still ashamed that I was around for it. I don't know how I might have stopped it, but in truth, we were all to blame. Every last one of us. You know how it is. When there's an event of great national sin later on, you always have people saying, "I told you so," but you remember them cheering along with it right as it happened. Sure, some took things further than the rest of us, but we were all in on it. So where does this story start? I think it really starts back in Egypt. Those were some awful days, let me tell you. Hot weather, hard work, downright evil taskmasters. I said I'm a shepherd. I'm no bricklayer, but I had to learn the job. It was bad. And it kept on getting worse, especially once Moses came along. We thought we could live as slaves, and then Moses started talking to Pharaoh, and it kept getting worse. They quit giving us straw. They kept our quota high. Well, I'm starting to get off track. Let me get back on the path, as we used to say. Then there were the plagues. The plagues were amazing, absolutely astounding. I remember the day we had to get off work early because it was too dark to see. And then when we went back home, it was just bright daylight. I also remember the Egyptians complaining about the frogs and the gnats, and there was stuff everywhere. And I also remember that one of the worst taskmasters was also the firstborn of his family. We didn't shed too many tears over him, but there were also some good and decent Egyptians who lost their family members. When we left Egypt, we were on top of the world. I mean, we were even rich. They gave us our jewelry. They gave us their jewelry to leave. Can you imagine that? You're not just a slave. Your things are going so horribly you can't imagine. Then the next thing you know, they make you rich and say, "Get out." We never thought we'd get out without a fight, and then they paid us to leave. If this was what life was going to be like with this God of Moses, well, you could sign us all up on the spot. We wanted in on this. This isn't to say there weren't some rough patches. On the way out, we were worried as we were pinned into place by Pharaoh's army, but God delivered us. I can hardly describe what it was like to walk through the seabed, looking up at the walls of water on each side. I had to catch my little girl. She wanted to see what happened when you went up and poked the wall of water. I was plenty happy not knowing. No, there's no telling what that would have caused. You know what it's like. It looks wonderful, but if you mess with it, you're worried about what's going to happen. Well, we did see what happened when the water came back. The entire army of Pharaoh, gone. This God is like nothing we have ever even heard of. He's certainly more powerful than those gods of Egypt who, well, they were just old guys wearing funny masks. then we started getting thirsty. We started getting hungry. The funny thing is, we weren't even on the verge of death, but you know how people complain. And you know how it is. The squeaky wheels get all the attention. They got the people up in arms, but God came through again. We could see him in the pillar of fire at night and in the cloud by day. Here's this God again, right here with us. Again, it was like anything I'd ever heard of. And then we came to the mountain. Wow. Just wow. I thought it was already amazing, and then we heard the voice of God. It was like the entire air was filled with sound. It wasn't like one person speaking, where you can tell where they are. It was like this voice came from everywhere. It was incredible, it was awe-inspiring, and it was also absolutely terrifying. It's one thing to have a God. It's another thing to see your God act. But it is yet another to be addressed by that God. The shift from him working on our behalf to actually speaking to us as though he cared what we did, I'm still not over it. It's like all of a sudden you're under this magnifying glass. And we were all in favor of serving this God. He's done so much more than we could have ever imagined, but we couldn't handle this God. You think you want God to speak to you until he actually does it. So we asked Moses to go talk to him. If God said anything more to us, just the shock would kill it. We couldn't handle it. So we said, Moses, you go. And he did. And to shorten this up, we made a covenant with God. Can you imagine a God that not only deals with humans willingly, but actually makes an agreement with them? And then after that, Moses went up the mountain. And that's when the wheels came off the chariot. Moses was up there for a long time. A long time. 40 days and 40 nights. When you realize we needed God's daily intervention to live and to survive out in that wilderness, you can realize we started getting nervous. God's on the mountain with Moses. He's not down here with us. The cloud's up there. We're down here. We needed him. And what happened to Moses? He didn't pack a lunch, not a wineskin or a loaf of bread. He should have at least sent Joshua back for supplies. We thought he was dead. Wandering off in this barren land would have had you dead in a couple of days, but 40? We didn't want to go up and look what might happen to us. Maybe Moses made this God angry. So we had to start asking, how could we get God to come back to us? And that's when it all went wrong. You see, our problem is that we thought God might be like other gods. That this God who led us out of Egypt might have something in common with what we had known. And we forgot that everywhere along the way, this God has been so much more than that. You'd think we wouldn't be thinking that way, but you know how hard it is to get rid of a bad habit. All we knew was the Egyptian way of being and what we could glean from traders and caravans. And I remember that it even took a few days of, you'd hear about it a little bit here and a little bit there. And then finally we went up to Aaron and they were going to ask him to make them an image. Maybe that will bring our God back. Maybe the reason our God isn't with us is because we've forgotten something. As it turned out, you've been thinking that too. So Aaron takes up a collection of gold, and we all throw in a little bit. I mean, we had so much gold, it was we didn't hardly know what to do with it. And he fashions this calf, and he calls it Yahweh. And I remember a little voice in the back of my head, you know what that's like? Why don't we ever listen to those? It said, remember when God talked to us? Isn't this what he warned against? Unfortunately, I was as thrilled as the rest. Maybe this would bring our God back to us. We gave sacrifices, and we wanted to try to atone for whatever we had done to drive this God away. We had feasts. We hoped that maybe our God would join in and return and guide us to this promised land. And we thought, well, this is what we knew. This was okay. But I'll tell you, that's as far as I went. There were some others, not a bunch, but there were a good number who went even farther. They started carrying on, getting drunk, even doing all kinds of unspeakable acts with each other. Here, there, didn't matter where. And of course, that's when Moses comes back. Oh, he was angry. Angry. I don't think I've ever seen someone so infuriated. And we're scared because, Moses had killed a guy with his bare hands. And he's carrying these tablets and he just smashes them right to bits. We found out later that God had been giving him more laws for us. God was the one who had seen what was going on and told Moses. He wasn't as far away from us as we thought. We even found out God even offered to destroy every last one of us. This God who was giving us food in the day, who led us out through the Red Sea, offered to kill us. Moses managed to talk to God and turn him from wrath. And that's when Moses came down to us, and the party ended right then and there. Never should have even gotten started. But you can't change the past. That image was busted up, burned. We had to drink it. Worst tasting stuff you ever would imagine. To tell the truth, it wasn't just the taste, though. It was the shame. You know what it's like. Crow has to be the least appetizing dish ever served. I thought I was going to be sick. Many weren't. Many died. But not everybody quit partying all that fast. Remember those I said really got into it and really got out of line? Next thing you knew, a bunch of Levites had grabbed their swords, strapped them on, went through the camp, executing each one of them on the spot. Over 3,000 people dead just from the Levites. That's not counting the ones who got sick from the drink. God didn't abandon us. We were afraid of that for a while, but from then on there was a bit more distance between God and between us. We knew what God had said, that we were rebellious and we were stubborn, and if he was right up with us, he just might kill us all. And to tell the truth, at that point we were starting to be pretty glad for the distance. An imminent God is a terrifying thing. And my brother was even a bit miffed at that comment from God, but I knew he was right. He was saying, what do you mean we're stiff-necked? I said, look, we have just proven ourselves to be that bad. So what really happened? Not just the calf, but why did we make the calf? What drove us to this? I've been giving a lot of time now to figuring this out. Where had we gone wrong? A lot of our mistake was out of ignorance. We didn't bother trying to listen to God to fix that. If we bothered to know God, this wouldn't have ever happened. First, we made the mistake of thinking that God's only in one place. We thought he was either with us or he was on the mountain. No, take it from one who's seen it. He's everywhere. He knew what Pharaoh had said in his bedchambers. He knew what we were doing when we were building things with bricks. He knew what Moses was doing on the mountain. And he knew what we were doing with the gold. God is not limited by distance. God is not a man that he should be limited like we are. Oh, that we had thought that. But another mistake. We tried to worship God as though he was any other God. Friends, I'm here to say that God is not like any other God. He alone is the living God. He alone is Lord. Do not think that you can gather and worship him just any old way. I know that you people in this day and age laugh at us with our images, with our idols. I'll tell you that those who are with me now laugh at you and thinking that you no longer have them. Do not think that what you like is what God likes. We thought we could just worship God based on what we knew about other things. And I know that nowadays, many of you like to worship God based on just what you like. Friends, you may not have a calf up here, but that doesn't mean that some aren't doing that. When you worship God, actually worship God. Know him. Serve him. Don't just sing a few psalms that you think sound nice. He has told you what he wants. I understand that you've had yet more messengers, even his son. Friends, you know what God wants. Don't make no mistakes. I knew. My wife knew. Every last one of us in the camp knew people who died. One of my best friends just got out of control. I saw him there. The sword. But I tell you what, could have just as easily been any of us. All because we chose to ignore what God had said and we tried to go with what we thought was right. As someone who came many years later said, the foolishness of God is wiser than man. We did our best and look where it got us. Don't think that you can think your way to God. Don't think that God doesn't mean what he says. It was a very hard lesson for us. But if you can learn from our mistakes, then my trip here tonight was not in vain.